this is my review of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. Okay, so it's the final episode of Battle Tendency, and things get interesting. So we find out a little bit about Cars' backstory and why he decided to create the stone masks, and albeit in a bit of a flashback. And we also see probably one of the most amazing ends to a supervillain for a JoJo series, possibly ever. Maybe. So what happened was, Cars, after falling into a lava bath, realized that he wouldn't be able to survive, but finds a way to survive anyway. He tries to create armor for himself using crab shells, but that doesn't necessarily work, as it just melts away anyway. However, he creates a secondary layer of air bubbles underneath the shell, which enables him to protect himself and actually create more armor. So the more it bubbles away, the more the air bubbles come up to protect him, essentially creating armor that protects him for a few minutes. Jojo and Stroheim, believing him to be dead, try to flee the scene as the volcano erupts, and then Jojo gets his arm cut off because obviously Cars is still alive and had survived being knocked into the lava. Jojo, despite being in great pain because his arm is now missing, tries to defeat Cars with an overdrive attack, but is kind of thrown for a loop when Cars delivers an overdrive attack himself and counters Jojo's attack with one of his own, resulting in Jojo's kneecap melting, I guess. And Jojo, with only one real ace in the hole that he has, realizes that the only way he can get out of it alive is to use the red stone of Asia, which he had pocketed several episodes ago, to redirect the Haman back into the volcano, causing both him and Cars to be launched several feet into the air. Cars tries to escape, but the combination of debris and Jojo's severed arm prevents him from actually escaping, and he is eventually knocked into space. And Jojo is presumed dead, and they hold a funeral for him. And meanwhile, Stroheim has gone back to fight the war, and it's revealed later that he wound up dying to the Russians during the invasion of Russia. So, which is factually accurate, because the Germans did invade Russia during World War II, which is when this is set. And whether or not Stroheim was actually in the fight is made up, but he did die during that, so he never wound up seeing Jojo again. And for all he knew, Jojo was dead this entire time. So the rest of the Joestar group holds a funeral for Jojo, and then Jojo shows up and reveals that not only did he survive the encounter with Cars and is still alive and kicking, but also reveals that Susie Q is not only now his wife, and they are now happily married, but also reveals that she in fact nursed him back to health after he crashed back to Earth into the ocean, and that the giant slab of rock that he was on actually saved his life and left him with only minor injuries and a missing arm, which was then replaced by a mechanical one. And everybody is just shocked because they thought that Jojo was dead, and I can't say I blame them, because nobody told them otherwise. Susie Q was supposed to tell them, but she forgot to send the telegram. And eventually Lisa does come forward with Jojo about him being her son, and the three family members that are still around move back to America and continue living there. Arena eventually does die of old age, and so does Speedwagon. We never see them again after this point. Smokey eventually becomes the mayor of the first black mayor in his home state, which is kind of satisfying. And for the most part, that's really all that happened. But it does set up a little bit for part 3, which I'm expecting to be quite interesting. So apparently Jojo hasn't seen his grandson in literal years, if at all, because his only daughter moved halfway across the world to move in with a Japanese man, and got married to a Japanese man and had a son whom he hasn't seen at all. And in the final moments, it reveals somebody who's presumably his grandson, who's in a jail cell for whatever reason. But it also sets up that Steel might be coming back, because apparently they found his coffin, which to my knowledge shouldn't be possible, because I'm pretty sure Irina and Lisa as a baby use it as a life raft. So I'm interested to see if and how that's going to play into the story. I'm assuming it will. Because it's Jojo. Everything's well connected, but it makes no sense. So yeah, I'm interested to see how this is going to play out. So it's the end of I can't say the second season, but the second half of the first season. And it was interesting. It was definitely interesting to see the side of the stone mask and how it came into being, which I didn't really touch on, but I'll touch on now. So apparently the Pillar Men were once widespread, but very few in numbers, because as it's stated in the episode, they live for a very long time and don't need to really reproduce all that much. But eventually Cars was born, realized he wanted to conquer the sun, and tried to convince his other Pillar Men to follow him. But he was only really able to convince AC/DC, and they kind of stole 2 of the babies and killed all the rest because they deemed Cars a threat, because they realized he would cause an imbalance in nature, because the Pillar Men, they kind of keep to themselves for the most part. They'll eat what they need to, but for the most part they'll just keep themselves, and that's perfectly fine. But yeah, eventually Cars, Santana, Wamu, and AC/DC became the 4 main Pillar Men of the series, and because all of the other Pillar Men were killed off in the story, so there's never going to be any Pillar Men. And Cars, he's in space. He's not coming back ever. And it's heavily implied that he'll never return to Earth, because he tries several times to return to Earth, but only freezes to death and turns back into a rock. So he's clearly never going to come back, and if he does come back, that would be interesting. I don't think they are going to do that, because I know how the story plays out after a certain point. So I know he won't be coming back ever, and I know they couldn't really rewrite him back into the story at any point. So, but who knows? Maybe they'll surprise me, and maybe he'll come back eventually. Like, I don't know. I don't really know how he could come back, because as I explained things after a certain point, there's no way he could come back. But I think he could, but he might not. So if he came back, I would be pleasantly surprised, because he was a cool villain. But I don't think he will. But if you guys have seen this episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and are looking forward to part 3, what did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, check out my Patreon description below as well, link in the description. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace! Collected Soul. Oh. Well, it's right here, but it's one of the EX ones, so see how this goes. I'm being summoned. Hold on. Alright, sorry about that. I had